today's top boxing news.
What's your issue with Amanda Serrano?
I want people to change that narrative. It's not really the issue with Amanda,
Okay.
I should say. Maybe it's with her team, MVP, trying to delete history and create fake history. That's my issue.
Which is what?
Which is when there's a women's event is when the women are the head of the bill. That's what I'm trying to get people to. It's not no hate. Like, yeah, 50 million tuned in to watch them, and I'm happy because women's boxing won, Amanda and Katie won. I got more attention from it.
Right.
I was there. I'm not a hater, but if it was just them at the head of the bill and it wasn't no Jake Paul and Mike Tyson on the card,
Right.
would they have gotten 50 million views?
Would you have got 2 million if you weren't fighting a UK fighter on a UK network on UK soil?
No.
Were those the kind of numbers that you were putting up on Showtime?
No.
Are those the kind of numbers you're putting up now? Because you fought 2 times since the Savannah Marshall fight, the Cornejo fight, the more recent Vanessa Joanese fight, and the upcoming Danielle Perkins fight.
Is that gonna do 2 million?
Because we know your last 2 fights didn't.
Can't you say the same thing about Savannah Marshall?
I can, except I don't have to, because Savannah Marshall doesn't proclaim that she's the greatest woman of all times. She certainly doesn't get into arguments about viewing figures and metrics and TV ratings. Clarissa does that. So while you could say the same thing about Savannah, Savannah doesn't give you a reason to.
And MVP never gave Clarissa a reason to go off on a tangent, because all they said was Taylor versus Serrano 2 was the most watched women's boxing match. They never said it was the most watched main event. They never claimed it was a headliner.
It's all very simple when you put aside Clarissa's bullshit. What fight did more people watch?
Taylor versus Serrano 2.
By a wide margin, and it's not even close. So when you talk about the most watched women's boxing match, you must be talking about Taylor versus Serrano, because the numbers aren't close.
Nobody said all those people were there specifically for that fight, even though some were.
But all of that is besides the point. If 50 or 60 million people saw Taylor versus Serrano 2, irrespective of why they were there originally, that's still more people than your fight. It's not complicated. Clarissa makes it complicated, makes it about something that it isn't, because she wants a reason to complain. This is a big reach, if it's anything.
There ever be a situation in a scenario that Amanda Serrano fights Clarissa Shields? Could you ever make 147 pounds? Because I see that the only possibility.
I think for me, I would have to get me a very strict nutrition team, have a cook in the house every day,
Right.
drinking all my water.
But it'll be worth it.
Would I be willing to try to make 147 if the opportunity came? They were like, hey, I want to fight you at 147. I would absolutely do it.
And yet she didn't want to do it for Alicia Baumgartner.
She said something like 2 years ago that all those girls at welterweight, they better watch out because she's going to move down and she's going to fight them. That's what started the whole thing between her and Alicia. Just for her to tell Alicia, no, you've got to fight me at 154, but you'll fight a naturally smaller woman at 147.
She so obviously moved the goalpost. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous because Clarissa is too goddamn big to be looking at girls at 147 or south of 147. She debuted at 168. Her next fight is up there at heavyweight.
That's why she's talking about Amanda Serrano, because she has a fight coming up. That fight by itself ain't gonna move the needle. It's not gonna get any attention, so she starts talking about Amanda.
So we all know that the women fluctuate in weight a lot more than the men do, but there are limits. Amanda is a natural featherweight. That means that to get to 135 and to get to 140, she literally has to eat her way there more than she usually does, because if she doesn't and she starts a camp, she's gonna boil down to 126.
You're talking about a fighter that has to eat their way to 135 and 140. You want to fight them at 147.
What?
And your next fight is at heavyweight.
May seem like I periodically have a go at Shields, but it's because so many people in the media are afraid to. I have to say the things that they won't. She's ridiculous.
This is stupid. It's a stupid question.
So when he asks her about a fight with Amanda at 147, I wonder did he follow up by asking her about Alicia Baumgartner, because that's where Alicia wanted to fight her, and Shields would have none of it. She moves the goalpost, says it's got to be at 154. How much more of a size advantage do you need over what are so obviously smaller women.
This is like Alexander Usyk talking about a fight with Nick Ball.
No matter how ridiculous all of this is, I always get the odd guy that wants to defend Clarissa Shields. What are you defending? Her stupidity or your ignorance?
You know what you need to do? Stop worrying about what I think. Get out of my comment section and actually go to her fight. That's where she needs you.
I'll bet you won't. I'll bet the day of, you won't even watch it. I don't even think you're a fan of Clarissa so much as it bothers you to see a Katie Taylor receive all these plaudits, or an Amanda Serrano.
Oh yeah, there's always an angry rabble of mouthy idiots going up to bat for Clarissa, but where are these people in the viewing figures? Where are they in the numbers? The gate receipts? Where are they?
Nowhere, because they're useless. But for some reason, they think they can gatekeep what me and you have to say about it, what me and you think.
Don't flatter yourself.
I've forgotten more about Clarissa Shields than any of you guys know because you're not really fans of her. And you've got it in your head that the only way to talk about this fighter is in a positive light when she's a negative person.
She spreads negativity wherever she goes.
If 50 to 60 million people saw a women's boxing match, who the hell cares who was in the main event? It's a win!
You don't look at it that way because you think you're competing with them.
It's not a competition, and if it were, you're not in the running. I'm not one of these boxing scribes that's afraid to tell the truth. I ain't gonna kiss your ass. You ain't pound for pound number one. You're not the greatest woman of all times. You can't draw flies to shit.
The only people that defend you online are the same people that don't even watch your fights.
I'm gonna defend Amanda Serrano. I'm gonna defend Katie Taylor because so many in the boxing media won't. I'll do the job they're not doing. In men's super lightweight news, newly crowned IBF champion Richardson Hitchins took to his social media and stated, "George Kambosos, you's a bitch." To which George responded, "Rent-free, you ugly little cunt. Can't keep me out of your little pea brain. It's hilarious it's the holidays and you're still on my nuts. Bah ha ha. Merry Christmas, you broke bum. I know what you got paid. I guess no Christmas toys again this year. I just bought a sick cruiser. So we're going to fight you or we're going to run like your fights. I already accepted the day you called me out on the biggest day of your life." If these two guys do fight, whether it's in Australia or America, Richardson Hitchins beats him. I have no doubts in my mind. Richardson Hitchins would do to George what Devin Haney did to George. George has neither the size, the punching power, the activity, or the style for Richardson Hitchins. Though, is this really going to be George's first fight as a matchroom fighter? Because it doesn't favor him. It doesn't favor him at all. Richardson Hitchins stated, "Why are you always writing me all this long shit? You's a bitch." To which George responded, "Can you not read, you illiterate dumb prick? Because I live rent-free in your brain. You say you're on the way to an island with your bae, but you're thinking about me. You're a weirdo. Rent-free shit."
I do feel like Richardson Hitchins is pouring a lot more energy into a George Kambosos fight than he needs to, because this is George Kambosos we're talking about. He already lost to Devin 2 times, got knocked out by Vasil Lomachenko, needed a gift over Maxie Hughes.
Is this really going to be George's next fight? I'm not sure, because the story has been that George is going to make his matchroom debut in his native Australia, and I believe that Sky Nicholson is supposed to be on the undercard. I'm not sure that this is going to be George's next fight, but maybe it will be Richardson Hitchins' next fight.
After George's.
That George will get back in the winner's bracket, make his matchroom debut, end his debut at 140 pounds, and then after that, he'll fight Richardson Hitchins. Maybe that's how it'll break down. George said, "Don't sign, you wish. It's already signed, you little bitch. You're on your heels every damn fight, you boring broke bum. Rent-free, rent-free, rent-free." Richardson Hitchins, giving George Cambodia this much energy. What it reminds me of is when Keith Thurman gave Paulie Malignaggi all that energy. That he had more energy for Paulie than, say, Kell Brook, who was already IBF champion at the weight at the time.
You better not fuck me, son.
It's just more energy than a fight like that requires. If they made that fight, I think Richardson Hitchins would be the betting favorite by a wide margin. George has done absolutely nothing at 140 pounds. And aside from that one win over Teofimo, which was basically lightning in a bottle.
At 135.
If you needed a gift decision just to make it past Maxie Hughes, you're not making it past Richardson Hitchins. I suppose Hitchins has grown desperate because he wants a Teofimo Lopez fight though he's not likely to get it. Teofimo is en route to a fight with Subriel Matias. It's a good fight.
And aside from Teofimo, when you look at the landscape across 140 pounds, well, there's a lot of fighters there are, but very few of them are big-name fighters. Thus, very few fights are big fights.
Oh, I suppose that Richardson Hitchins could set his sights on the winner of Puello versus Martin for the WBC title, but stylistically, that's not actually a good fight. And in terms of size and scale, marquee value, it's not a big fight either.
What about Rayo?
Rayo is supposed to be making a voluntary defense of his WBA title against Gary Antoine Russell. If that fight happens, I think Gary Russell wins. I think he knocks out Rayo Valenzuela. That's what I think. But we have to cross that bridge when we get to it because the fight is not official. The fight has not yet been made. Maybe Richardson Hitchins can target the winner.
When the winner emerges, several months from now.
Maybe he can target the winner of Catterall versus Barboza. That has been officially announced and is set to go down early next year. If what Richardson Hitchins wants is to fight a somebody at the weight, whoever wins that fight, there is somebody.
The gears are in motion at 140 pounds. The problem is there's not a lot of big-name fighters there. There are not a lot of big-name fights.
And that's not Richardson Hitchins' fault. He can only fight who's there. He can only fight who's willing. George says that he's willing, but when exactly can we expect to see George in the ring with Hitchins and Richins?
I don't know. But if they ever do fight, I'm pretty sure that fight is going to go the same way the Haney fight went for George. It's the same fight, stylistically, just at a higher weight.
But it's the same fight. George would lose wide on the cards if Hitchins Richins doesn't stop him. And finally, one of the bigger Twitter accounts in the boxing sphere, Boxing Kingdom, asked, how do you think a fight between a prime Deontay Wilder and Alexander Usyk would have played out?
Oh, prime Wilder.
Well, Two-Tone the Superstar stated, I believe Usyk was tailor-made to get put to sleep by pre-Fury Wilder. But this is the same Two-Tone the Superstar that thought Errol Spence was going to beat Terence Crawford and that Ryan Garcia was going to beat Gervonta Davis. So if what Two-Tone is telling you is that Wilder would win the fight, that means Usyk would win, indefinitely.
Got nothing against him, he just doesn't have the best track record when it comes to big fights like this one would have been.
Another Twitter user that goes by the name Alejang said, Wilder now would KO him. Wordsmith said, Wilder early mid KO or Usyk late KO. Wilder's speed and unpredictability would give Usyk a lot of trouble. That's a lot of bullshit. Jay said, not a good fight for Usyk. He's a much better boxer, but not powerful enough to stop Wilder. Bad idea. You don't need to be the strongest puncher to get Wilder in trouble. And no, I'm not talking about Tyson Fury. Years ago, he was on Queer Street at the hands of a journeyman in Harold Sconiers. Harold almost knocked him out.
It was kept under wraps. It was kept a secret a number of years. That at Fantasy Springs years ago, Wilder came very close to being knocked out by a fat journeyman. Wasn't even a big guy.
Why didn't Wilder and Usyk ever fight?
Well, after Wilder's first fight with Fury in late 2018, all he was focused on was a rematch.
A rematch with Fury. Remember that he had already turned down a number of offers from Matchroom and DAZN because he was more focused on fighting Fury.
Fighting him again.
Usyk doesn't make his heavyweight debut until October of 2019. 5 months later, Wilder loses the second Fury fight. Usyk debuts as a heavyweight in October, Wilder loses to Fury in February, and from that moment on, we know what the story was.
What the focus became.
So many people get the chronology of all of this wrong, that Usyk was never actually on Wilder's radar, in spite of what Wilder might have gone on to say afterwards. From 2018 onward, he was focused on Tyson Fury, fighting Tyson Fury for a second time and fighting him for a third time, which he did, and he lost the last two.
That wasn't the question, though. The question was, if Usyk and Wilder fought in Wilder's prime, what would have happened?
Well, I gotta say that Wilder, in his prime, if he even had one, when he would have been in his prime, Usyk would have still been down there at cruiserweight. So that never actually lined up.
If what we're talking about is the best version of Wilder versus the best version of Usyk, I'd go with Usyk to beat him.
I'd go with Usyk every single time because Wilder in his prime is not that different a boxer from the boxer that he is now. He never had coordination, he never had cardio, never had much of a work rate. He's always looking for one punch to do the guy.
And you can rack up highlight reel knockouts till the cows come home when they're constantly matching you against stationary targets, mostly.
Fury wasn't a stationary target, and Wilder knocked him down 4 times.
Yeah, but Fury's a much, much bigger target than Alexander Usyk. Not only is he a bigger target, he's a slower target.
Knocking down Tyson Fury is not some monumental achievement. Nevin Pajcik knocked Fury down. Steve Cunningham, Francis Ngannou knocked Fury down. Wilder knocking him down.
That's not saying much.
Triangle theories don't work. You hear that all the time. Triangle theories don't work for Wilder like they don't work for Usyk. I'm not saying Usyk beats Wilder because of the Fury fights. I'm saying it because of how Wilder fights.
Wilder's never had good feet, never had good movement, never had good coordination or cardio.
Against a very small target that's constantly moving and staying on the outside of his lead, Wilder won't be able to line him up for the right. I would sooner expect Usyk to land left hands, several big straight left hands down the pipe, than Wilder landing his right.
Because Wilder ain't got the feet to turn with him.
And if Usyk is that close to him, mid-range to inside, he has the advantage at that proximity because Wilder never had inside game.
That's why Fury beat him up, on the inside.
Wilder needs room to work, room to get full extension on the arm to fire that cannon, but if he doesn't have it, he's a deer in the headlights. The way I imagine that fight looking, Deontay Wilder in his prime, is how he looked with Joseph Parker. It would be something akin to that, but worse. To where you're looking to land that right hand, but it's not safe to let it go, because the guy keeps pressuring you and pushing you back.
If you do let it go, you're gonna get countered and you might get dropped. Stopped.
I don't know if Usyk would stop him. He's not the strongest finisher. He's not a knockout merchant. But Usyk wide on the cards, Usyk on points, is the likeliest outcome.
A one-sided fight.
People talk about Deontay Wilder's prime like he's some sort of a Pegasus or a unicorn. The sooner he would have started fighting guys like Usyk, the sooner he would have lost.
Don't forget, a fat journeyman and Eric Molina rattled him.
There is absolutely no historical precedent to suggest that Wilder had the ingredients to beat Alexander Usyk. The most that you could give Wilder is a puncher's chance, because this is the heavyweight division.
But that's not saying much. Everybody has a puncher's chance.
So when you say everybody, that also means Usyk. Usyk has that same chance.
Yeah, if they would have fought, I think Usyk would have took him to school.